On November 24th, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving, an ordinary-looking man walked into Portland International Airport. He was calm, well-dressed, and completely unremarkable. He wore a black business suit, a white shirt, and a narrow black tie. Witnesses would later describe him as polite, quiet, and around his mid-40s. Nothing about him suggested he was about to commit one of the most famous crimes in American history. He bought a one-way ticket for just $20 under the name Dan Cooper. Today, the world knows him as D.B. Cooper, a name created later by a media mistake that would become legendary. After boarding Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, Cooper chose a seat near the rear of the aircraft. The flight from Portland to Seattle was short, only about 30 minutes. Everything seemed routine. Passengers chatted, flight attendants worked normally, and nothing seemed out of place. Then Cooper handed a folded note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. At first she assumed it was just a phone number from a passenger trying to flirt, but Cooper leaned slightly toward her and quietly said, "You should read that note. I have a bomb." When she opened it, her heart dropped. The note demanded $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck ready in Seattle. Cooper calmly opened his briefcase, just enough for her to see wires and cylindrical objects inside. Whether it was a real bomb or not is still unknown. What made the situation even more disturbing was his behavior. He wasn't angry. He wasn't nervous. He didn't shout. Witnesses said he behaved more like a professional negotiator than a criminal. At one point, he even paid for his drink and tipped the flight attendant. As the plane approached Seattle, authorities prepared for the emergency. The FBI decided the safest option was to cooperate. When the aircraft landed, Cooper allowed all 36 passengers to leave safely after receiving the ransom money and parachutes. This decision would later become one of the most mysterious parts of the case. Why release the passengers if he planned something bigger? After refueling, Cooper ordered the remaining crew to take off again. His instructions were extremely specific. He wanted the plane flying at 10,000 feet, slower than normal speed, with the landing gear partially deployed and the rear staircase open. These were not random demands. Investigators later believed he had knowledge of aircraft systems. Somewhere over the forests of Washington state, during heavy rain and darkness, D.B. Cooper prepared for his escape. He tied the money bag around his body, put on a parachute, and opened the rear stairs. At approximately 8:13 p.m., somewhere in the darkness between Seattle and Portland, D.B. Cooper jumped into the night and vanished. The pilots didn't see him jump. They only noticed a sudden change in the aircraft's balance. That was the moment D.B. Cooper disappeared forever. What followed was one of the largest investigations in FBI history. Hundreds of agents worked the case. Military aircraft searched the skies. Ground teams searched miles of dangerous forest. The terrain was harsh, filled with rivers, mountains, and thick wilderness. Nothing was found. No parachute, no equipment, no body, no trace of D.B. Cooper. Years passed with no answers. Then in 1980, 9 years after the hijacking, a young boy named Brian Ingram was digging in the sand near the Columbia River during a family vacation. What he found shocked investigators. 3 bundles of decaying cash, a total of $5,800. The serial numbers matched the ransom money given to Cooper. It was the only physical evidence ever recovered from the crime. But the discovery created even more questions. How did the money get there? Why only that small amount? And why was nothing else ever found? Over the decades, the FBI investigated more than 800 suspects. Some people confessed on their deathbeds. Others were investigated for years. One suspect, Richard McCoy, committed a similar hijacking months later. Another, Kenneth Christensen, was considered due to his aviation background, but none could ever be proven to be D.B. Cooper. In 2016, after 45 years, the FBI officially suspended active investigation of the case. Resources were moved to more recent crimes, but the mystery was never solved. D.B. Cooper remains the only unsolved commercial airplane hijacker in American history. Some experts believe he died during the jump, unable to survive the freezing temperatures and rough terrain. Others believe he planned everything perfectly and escaped with the money. And some investigators believe something even stranger, that he may have had military parachute training. Maybe he knew exactly where he was going. Maybe he had help waiting. Or maybe he simply disappeared into history. More than 50 years later, the question still remains. Who was D.B. Cooper? Did he survive the fall? Did he escape with the money?